Cheers to you, darlings. You've made it through 2 weeks of this show, and I congratulate you. But consider this your 2-week notice. You're listening to New Job. Who dis? Welcome, one and all, to another scintillating and exciting edition of New Job, Who Dis? I am your exquisite host and prism of excellence, Halston Body. Welcome back. It is Friday, as I said. I'm glad you made it through 2 weeks of work or whatever you are doing in your lives, and you are here listening and or watching. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. As I always say, subscribe, like, do all the things that people yell at you to do online to share the love and pass the word and, praise the Lord and pass the bucket, as they say. Please share with everybody this podcast, videocast, and enjoy as we're about to get into my 4th job in my life in less than 2 years. Now remember, to catch those who are now just catching up, I have had over 40 jobs in my life. Some lasted a day, some lasted years, but I am here to share with you my experiences, my life experiences with jobs. Somehow, for whatever reason, I have had hustle, I have had intuition, I've had creativity, I've used gut instinct, I've chased jobs, I've, left buildings with both fingers in the air, middle fingers that is, and I'm here to tell you the stories. So hopefully, in some way, shape, or form, you will be either inspired or perhaps you can share in my misery. I have failed so many times at things that I can only, share with the world what I've been through in a way to give people perspective. Maybe they're stuck. They're stuck somewhere in a job that they hate. Or maybe they're looking for a job and they don't want to go to one that they hate. Either way, my tales of misery and my tales of, amazing, luck and or skill in jobs that I have, explored have brought me here. This beautiful face and this gorgeous look and the personification of a wrestling manager by the name of Halston Body didn't just happen overnight. I didn't just draw it up on some vision board and go, that's it. There's layers upon layers of examples and things that I had to learn myself to get to the point where I can look this good. And for those listening at home on the podcast, you're just gonna have to check it out on YouTube. I look amazing. Let's get into my 4th job, but before I do, let me quickly recap where we've been so far. I started as a paperboy at 14 in 1987. Have to correct that from the first episode. I said 86. I would have been 13. I had to do the math quick. I was like, born in 73. Wait a minute. And then I got a job as a dishwasher at a Chinese restaurant called Chinese Pagoda in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Not to be outdone by anybody, for some strange reason, I picked up a second job at the same time as a dishwasher at an Italian restaurant in Milwaukee, Wisconsin called Balistreri's. And both jobs were fun. Both jobs were learning experiences. I had both jobs for maybe 5 months, maybe. I want to say 6 months, but that seems too long. But I had it for at least 4 months, at the most 6. Because what's going to happen next is a turning point in my life as far as opportunity and setting a stage for what will come later in life. And I'm very excited about it because this job hunt took perseverance. It absolutely took me knocking on the door several times and almost getting in their face, so to speak, to have them hire me. The establishment that I have so far as my job experience, is just rough and tumble. I mean, I'm a dishwasher. P.S. by the way, respect the dishwashers. I just want to let you know, moving forward, when I talk about the jobs that I've had, I will also make sure to sprinkle a little bit of life lesson for anybody who's listening. Respect these jobs. I didn't do them just so I could see how terribly I was treated or to feel like a low person on the totem pole, so to speak. But when I got out of those jobs and I witnessed how people treat those people in those positions, it absolutely infuriates me, because I almost always want to say to them, do their job. Become a dishwasher and understand what these people have to go through, because I've done it and I did it. And I respect the dishwasher. I respect the servers. I respect everybody that I've ever done a job. Spoiler alert, I said I was a server. We'll get to those stories. But this next job was absolutely perseverance, knocking on the door. Please, please, please. I want this job so bad. The next job that I had at the ripe age of 15, not even legally. I mean, yes, it was legal because I had a permit, but the normal working age back in the 80s was 16. Legally, you could have a teenage job at 16. You had to get a certain permit to work underage if you were not 16 years old. And so I was working 2 dishwasher jobs while in high school. Why? And it was getting on to close to, I was in sophomore year. Another piece of information you need to know about me to give yourself a perspective of where I'm at with this is I graduated high school early. When I say early, I mean age. I was 17 and I just turned 17 about 4 months or 5 months prior, because my birthday is in February and I graduated in June of 1990. And I got skipped through 2nd grade. When I was living on the southeast side of Milwaukee in Bayview, Wisconsin, I was at a Catholic school called St. Augustine. And, I was one of those kids that was a child reader. I could read, I say that with a question mark, I guess. I don't know what the term is, but I could read magazine articles at the age of 4. Like here's a Woman's Day article, read it. And I could just read it. And there may be 1 or 2 $5 words in there that I'm like, what's turquoise? You know what I mean? Like, or something, yeah, turquoise. I guess I just had a vocabulary and a reading brain as a young child. When I got to 1st grade, I had the reading comprehension of a 5th grader. And I think I was on 3rd or 4th grade math in 1st grade. And so there were a couple kids. It was me and somebody else. Somebody had a meeting somewhere. My parents probably had a meeting with the nuns and the priests or the teachers. And they were like, yeah, he's way too advanced for this. He reads at a 5th grade level and he's only in the 1st grade. So let's move him forward and put him in the 3rd grade. Okay, whole new class, whole new set of friends. I barely got started. It's fine. Fun fact though, I stopped reading. I stopped reading for fun. Back when I was a child, I'd read everything. I was going to the library with my parents. We were just reading everything. As an adult, I don't care about reading books. I take that back. I read books, but I'm not a casual or fun or, hey, I should just pick up that paperback series and just read that. That's not my hobby. My hobby and my childhood foundation of what I love to do and what I enjoy the most is music. There's all those entertainment categories, movie, music, Broadway, whatever you enjoy. I am a music child. I'm a rock and roll child. As I said in a previous podcast, my parents were rock and roll parents. My dad and mom had albums. I just want to share with you a visual. You cannot see this on the podcast, but I'll explain it to you. This is one of my Bibles. I know there's a lot of people that, religion, but this is legitimately, if I had take 5 books with you to a desert island, this would be one of them. And I think I need to get the catch-up version because this is the 2006 version. But this is the Billboard Top Singles book compiled by Joel Whitburn. And it is legitimately a tome of every song that was ever in the top 100 ever by every artist, and every, like, they do it by song, they do it by artist. I legitimately, I mean, I don't worship legitimately, but in a legit sense, I worship the Billboard Charts. I was raised on Wolfman Jack, Casey Kasem, Rick Dees, Shadow Stevens, and all the top 40 that you could handle, all the pop hits, everything that I love in music. Most of it has to do with a hook and is it catchy? All the insipid pop hits that critics hate and music snobs sneer at, give me all of it. Please. Macarena, yes, more of that. Tub Thumping by Chumbawamba, 100%. Absolutely. Hey now, you're an all-star. Listen, it's a little grating, but I do like it because it's catchy and it's got a beat you can dance to. And I have always been a fan of hits. If it's a hit, I love it. Now, I have my underground tastes. I have my weird flavors in the ice creams of vanilla and chocolate and strawberry. I have some weird flavors in there that have elderberry. However, for the most part, I'm predictable. I'm fairly predictable that if you got a catchy hit and it's something that's got a smart hook, I'm 99% in. So yeah, it's hard for me to not like something if I can start singing it after like one listen. So that's my musical brainwave. Now, I'm also, just to give you a perspective, I don't hate music. There are those people who are like, I only love insert music here, therefore all other music is hot trash. No, it is not. It's more for other people. It's really what I call it. It's more for you. It's, if you are into Norwegian death metal, I know it is a valid form of music and people enjoy it, consume it, purchase it, watch it on stage, go to concerts, and have the same culture that anybody else in the music world tries to have. So I don't go, ugh, Norwegian death metal is the worst. Yeah, I only listen to this. Like, bad idea. If I can give one piece of advice to anybody out in the world who has their own musical tastes, keep loving your musical taste. Don't let anyone tell you it's bad or it's garbage or you shouldn't be listening to this. You should be listening to this. I have had so many musical lessons in my life that have brought me to that conclusion, and experiences of just arguments about what's good music, what's bad music, what's likable music, all that. I've thrown it out the window because at the end of the day, you like what you like. And if you like that, like it and keep liking it until you can't get enough of it. And even when you can't get enough of it, get some more. I love it. I got that sort of notion because I was a Kiss fan. And, you know, you may know what you know about the band. You may have your preconceived notion about what you know or think Kiss is. But as a child in the 70s and early 80s, liking Kiss was uncool. It was super uncool. I mean, it was cool if you were around other Kiss fans, but anybody who was just like a music snob or had some sort of Rolling Stone attitude about music should be this, holy smokes, did I have to fight and, you know, argue and you stand up for myself as far as a music lover because I loved Kiss. Oh, that's just garbage. I remember a very famous Paul Stanley interview. It was on I believe it was the Kiss, I want to call it the Revenge tape. It was right around the 90s, early mid-90s. They put out this Kiss Revenge. And it was kind of like a behind the music, before behind the music existed. And I remember to this day a very vivid quote from Paul Stanley, and hopefully you can put this in your pocket for yourself, and maybe you can use it for yourself in your own example of what you like. He said, oh, critics hated us. Oh, Kiss, that's nonsense. That's garbage. You should be listening to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. No, you go listen to Emerson, Lake and Palmer. I'm going to go listen to Kiss. And that's how I just had to grow into that mind frame of like, I had so many people dogging me for liking Kiss. Oh, Kiss, it's so dumb. but I loved it. I couldn't stop loving it, and I still love it to this day. So the level of accessibility, top 50, 100 singles on the Billboard charts. I used to go to bookstores and find Billboard magazine just to see what the chart hit was, what's on the charts today. And even as a kid, my parents would, my dad especially, would take us to record stores around Milwaukee. And, even when we were at like flea markets or rummage sales, I was always going to the album box because I wanted to see the pretty colors and the covers and the art and the photography of these cool albums. What are these albums about? These pictorials of artists on these big album sleeves. What is this? And one of the first albums I ever bought, the first two albums I ever got or owned as a child, because my parents, I guess, let me, it was a used record store. I bought Cheap Trick Live at Budokan and Kiss Alive 2. Those are my first two albums ever. Double gatefold, double albums. I mean, there's the foundation, kids, of rock and roll. I'm a Midwestern kid. It's all rock and roll. 93 QFM, Laser 103, all that Chicago Midwestern rock, Cheap Trick, Rush. Again, all of that is my culture. What I would consider my Milwaukee Midwestern musical culture is top 40 rock and roll, late 70s, early 80s disco, of course, pop music, MTV, anything that was in the pop culture landscape of music. That's in my blood. My dad would take us to record stores, again, as I said, and one of the biggest record stores in Milwaukee at the time, in the late 70s, early 80s, was a place called Radio Doctors. And Radio Doctors was downtown, 3rd and Wells for Milwaukee historians, who it does not exist there anymore. In fact, I would have to go back. I didn't go back down to 3rd and Wells, but I know that the whole, the Bradley Center's gone and all this Milwaukee infrastructure downtown is all changed up. I have not been walking downtown Milwaukee in quite a many years, but I would have to get out of my car, walk around downtown and remember where, look at 3rd and Wells and go, what the hell is here now? Because on 3rd and Wells was this giant building, this corner building called Radio Doctors. And it was the amoeba of LA for the time in the late 70s, or the amoeba of San Francisco. Those big record stores, the towers, that was our Tower Records. We didn't have Tower Records or Virgin Records or any of these big chain record stores other than the mall ones. We had Musicland, we had Sam Goody, we had Tape World at one point, and then we had Mean Mountain Music, which was a local record store. Used albums and, high-priced albums and stereophonic and speakers and all that stuff. But Radio Doctors was the big one. I loved Radio Doctors as a child because what they would do downstairs was their singles area. They had a downstairs basement room, and it was all 45s, Enka singles, all 45s. Everybody who put out a single had a 45 record. Whew! And what was cool, especially for me, being a visual child and loving music and loving the Billboard charts, they created some sort of shelf that half the room, it was at least half the room long. And it was, I think, 3 deep, and maybe 30 rows down. And it was the entire top 100 of the Billboard charts in 45 form all the way down the rows. So if you're like, oh, what's number 63 this week? Oh, that song, I need to get that. You knew where it was. You could just be like, look at the Billboard charts. Oh, it's number 7 on the charts this week. Well, all I have to do is go to number 7. And just seeing the visual of all those 45s and the cover art and the picture art of the sleeves was just, as a child, it was just so, again, foundation. This is where I get my visual aesthetic. I love album cover art. I love all of that from that era. And, of course, just shopping the albums and, the bumper stickers and the rock and roll culture and patches and going to record stores to find the things that aren't just albums. I mean, there's, box sets and all these cool things and stereos and headphones and everything involved around music. Radio Doctors was definitely a treat every time my parents we were downtown and we decided to waltz over to Third and Wells. It was definitely paradise for me as a child. So here we are, 15 years old. I'm working 2 dishwasher jobs. And as I said in a previous episode, I had a coaster bike. But the job that I had to get to, the Balustrades dishwasher job, was not a friendly bike ride. I mentioned before it was uphill both ways, and it kind of was. You went down one hill to get to the bottom where the train tracks were, and then you had to go up this big same hill. You just came down. You had to go up that same hill to get to Balustrades. So 99% of the time, I would walk it. It wasn't a terrible walk, especially when you had headphones and you had a Walkman or a CD Walkman. I didn't have one yet, but that walk wasn't terrible. You just had the headphones and the radio playing, and you just walked it, and it was probably 2 miles. Another reason why I have calves like I do, because I walked everywhere in Milwaukee and Wauwatosa. So on the way back from walking from Balustrades, at the bottom of both hills was there was an intersection. Half the intersection on I would say the south side of the intersection was train tracks. It was the railroad crossing, and then right past the railroad tracks on 68th and Wells, there was, or not Wells, 68th Street was a bar, like a tavern, and then it became houses and a parkway. But on the other side, on the north side of that intersection, on one side was a grocery store called Century Foods, and on the other side was this tiny little strip mall. It had, I gotta think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe like 7 stores. Maybe. There was the bank on the one corner. There was this store front in the middle. And then there's next to that was a Cousins Subs. I could go on about Cousins Subs for another half hour, but let me tell you, if you get to Milwaukee or you get to the Midwest, please try Cousins Subs. You'll thank me later. It's so good. Get the Italian special, get a whole one, get a half one, just try it. It's so good. The best sub I've ever had in my life to this day. And anytime I go back to Milwaukee, I always get a sub from Cousins. So after that, after Cousins, there was a little stairwell, and then there was a haircut. It was, at the time, it was called the Haircuts Company. And I got my hair cut there several times. And it was a whole hair salon down on the lower part after a couple stairs. And then there was just a random amount of stores that came and went, video stores. I couldn't tell you what the other stores were, because they kind of came and went fairly frequently. They weren't, memorable stores. I'm like, oh, finally, this store opened in that strip mall I can finally go to. Until, dun, 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 I'm walking home from my lovely dishwasher position 3 nights a week at Balustrades. And as I'm walking home, I see, one time I think I stopped at Cousins because they were still open. They were open up late, 10 o'clock maybe on a Thursday or Friday night. I don't remember. For some reason, my interest was piqued to go over on the side of where the strip mall was, not the Century Grocery side. It was the other side. And I walked past the strip mall. And I noticed next to the bank, the middle store was empty, and there were signs, like paper signs of some sort, on the wall or on the window. Curious child that I was, of course, I trotted over there to look, and it said, future home of radio doctors. What? What? Wait a minute. That radio doctors, that giant warehouse of music downtown is getting an offshoot here? Shut the front door. You gotta be kidding me. My heart raced. I couldn't believe it. And of course, there were now hiring signs or we're hiring signs with that. And I was like, hyperventilating. I'm like, wait a minute. Because my brain at the time, 15 years old, have had great job experiences so far. Milwaukee Journal, that was kind of like my first job. And then I had these 2 dishwasher jobs. So my brain didn't necessarily fear trying to get this job, because I was thinking to myself, okay, well, I've had 2 jobs for at least 4 months. running at the same time, never been late, never called out, and have done a great job at both those positions. Why would I not? I mean, there was no logic that told me I shouldn't try to get that job. They were just looking for some part-time help. I've never did retail before, but I thought, okay, well, maybe my strength is I've had 2 jobs and I know music. I pay attention to what's on the charts, and I know what's on the MTV right now. I know I said that so old, but the MTV and the rock and roll. I know these things. Maybe that'll get me hired. I mean, I got to try, right? Oh, my heart pitter-pattered. My brain also was a little bit confused because this space that this radio doctors was going to go in was a tiny, tiny store area comparatively to the radio doctors. I mean, the radio doctors, again, like an amoeba, this warehouse, this giant overflowing place with just, music up the wazoo. And here's this tinier little strip mall place that's going to host a radio doctors. I mean, okay, cool. Because again, I wasn't thinking retail strategy at 15. I wasn't thinking, who's our clientele. I was like, oh my God, there's a record store opening up in my town. What? Like, it was so exciting. Oh, I walked home, told my parents, guess what? Guess what's moving in to the strip mall next to the Cousins and the bank? A radio doctors. Oh, my dreams are coming true. So here we go. This is how the persistence won me the job at 15 years old with a work permit. I kept showing up. First of all, I showed up with, hey, I'd love to apply. Let me fill out an application. Got it. Went home, filled it out with my best penmanship, brought it back right away. That was the one thing I knew. That was a lesson that I knew about. When you ask for an application, try to fill it out right away and get it to them, because it was just one of those things you had to do. You just had to fill out this paper application they tore it off a sheet. Here's your application, kid. Bring this back. I did. And I kept coming back. I kept showing up. I believe the owner, manager, franchise owner, I guess, his name was, I think it was Dan. And I remember constantly trying to ask for Dan. Is Dan here? No, he'll be back later this afternoon. Oh, okay. Maybe he was going to the other location. I don't even know. But I was always trying to show up to try to talk to the guy, because I felt somewhere instinctively, I knew if I could just talk and convince the hiring manager, the person who owned the place or whatever, that I was their guy, I was in. Well, persistence paid off, because after so many times annoying them by showing up and telling them I can walk to work. I mean, maybe that was a good thing for them. I'm like 4 or 5 blocks away. I mean, I'm just up the hill and over a little bit, and I'll be here in 10 minutes. I'll never be late. I'm always going to be on time. And boy, do I love music. I know music. I shop at radio doctors all the time. I couldn't sell myself hard enough. I wanted that job so bad. And I got it. And I was just over the moon. So imagine being a 15-year-old in high school, the underage 15-year-old, mind you. All my counterparts in sophomore year were 16 already. And here's this 50-year-old schlubby kid who, by all means was not a popular kid. I wasn't unpopular, but I was definitely not, hey, prom king. I was nowhere near that level. I was just this middle-of-the-road kid who just got through high school. So all of a sudden, I am now in possession of a CD player, a 20-track programmable CD player with a remote, and then I get a job at a record store. Who's the cool kid now? It didn't matter that all these people played sports and were cheerleaders and all that. I had the cool job at 15. What? And at the time, I didn't realize it. Now we look back and you think about all these romanticized movies about record stores, like High Fidelity and all these things where they talk about, that record store culture. And every time you see it in the media of any sort, like entertainment, they talk about, cool record stores. It'd be cool to work at the record store like that cool person. I was that person at 15. What? It was so much fun. So much fun. And I wasn't at the job long. I think maybe 5 months. And we'll get to that in a second of why I left it. But I was like, I'm good. This is the most amazing job I'm ever. Holy smokes. I've hit the pay dirt. I'm working for the company that I used to shop at, and now I'll still shop at, but now I'm here. And now we're entering into CD land. That's the interesting part. We're transitioning. We're transitioning out of albums and 45s and we're moving into CDs slowly. It's not like, oh, all of a sudden it's all CDs. There's not a single album or 45 left in the universe. But realistically, it was like we weren't selling as many albums or 45s, and then we were suddenly like filling our shelves with CDs. It was all CDs. Great. Right on the cusp. The fun part about working in that place is, hold on. So here I am, 15 years old, working a record store. By the way, of course, I left the dishwasher jobs. Are you kidding me? Wash dishes. I'm working a record store. Huh. And I wanted to be available. That was the other thing too. I didn't want to well, I've got 2 other jobs. Can I only work every other Saturday? I was like, no, I want to work at this record store all the time, listen to music all the time, talk about music all the time. And so I quit both jobs pretty much at the same time. I gave 2-week notices. Don't be fooled. I didn't quit and hate it. I love those jobs. I mean, free food, dishwashing wasn't painful, messy and sloppy and smelly, but wasn't the worst job. They treated you well, they fed you nice, and it wasn't long, painstaking hours. I left those jobs, and I believe I got the same pay rate. I might have gotten $3.50 an hour to work at Radio Doctors, but it didn't matter. I was so happy to be working at a record store. And I feel like some of my high school, I want to call them acquaintances. I had a good solid 5, 6, 7 friends that were like my core group, but all the other people who had any sort of interest of knowing me or had any sort of like, hey, what do you do? Or what are you doing? When they found out I worked at Radio Doctors, they were aghast. They were like, wow, how? What? That's such a cool job. So yeah, all that clout meant nothing though. It really didn't mean anything. I didn't get any extra cool points. I mean, maybe people left me alone because I was kind of perceived as cool, I guess. I don't know. Either way, hey man, that guy's got a CD player and he works at a record store. Yeah, let me just, dust off those shoulders, baby. So yeah, very excited about that job. I worked mostly as I worked part-time, there to stock, there to clean. I don't remember being too much on the register because I think they were like, he's not 16 yet. We don't know if he can do that part yet. But it wasn't that hard. I mean, just ringing up CDs. There was no scanners at the time, so you had to like type stuff in. We didn't have like major barcodes, so you had to just look at the stickers and $15.99, whatever. That's how you rang things up. I don't remember being on register a lot, but I do remember being in the store, fairly part-time. I think I was making 15 hours a week, 3-4 shifts at the most. I would say 3 shifts a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, maybe a Saturday. Didn't matter. I loved every minute I was there. I mostly worked with a guy, and I can't remember his name. I want to say it was Pat. I'm guessing, I'm drawing just out of recollection from 30 years ago. There was this guy named Pat, total rockerhead, total like the guys you see on MTV Spring Break hanging out with Vince Neil and Motley Crue. It was like the frosted, teased out, winger type hair. He was very skinny, like rocker skinny, like Jenny Lane from Warrant. Like, wow, you can see his ribs. He's so thin, but he rocks, and he wears ripped jeans, and he's got the hair and a little bit of eyeliner, and he just had that rocker look. Cool guy to hang out with and talk music with, and he was such a metalhead. He was one of those people that anything that I liked pop was just like Madonna, but of course I'd be like, yeah, but I also love Queen and Kiss, and he was like, oh, awesome, so it was just whatever you could tune into his frequency about what music he liked, you were on his side. I remember a couple moments in the store with him where I remember on like a random Tuesday or Thursday night, we were in the front of the store. We heard a crash outside, and he was like, oh, what was that? And he goes outside, and apparently this Pat guy, some guy clipped his car parking, like hit his bumper. And because I was like watching from inside the store, but I didn't want to leave the store because, I'm 15, fresh-faced, and didn't want to be like, yeah, let me just leave this retail store. I'll buy with no one in it. Like, I was like, I'll hold the fort while you check it out. Apparently some guy hit his car, And I remember him telling me after he came back, and I was like, what happened? He was like, oh, some guy hit my car. I go, yeah, okay, did you call the police or what? I mean, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have a card. I didn't understand insurance. And I was like, oh, what do? Did you just call the police? He's like, no, man, I just told him, give me like, give me like $50, or it was like $200 or something. He literally milked the guy for like couple $100 out of his wallet instead of calling the police about it or whatever. He's like, just give me like $200. He's like, oh, okay. Out of fear, the guy gave it to him. I was like, oh, well, okay. I guess you can do that. A little life lesson. I never not that I've never done it. I've never gotten into an accident. I've never hit somebody, but boy, oh boy. I mean, I can't imagine. My brain went, wait, how do you just get away with that? Oh, you can't. You just can. Nobody needs to know if I hit your car. And if I just give you $500 in cash and you go, we're cool, I don't have to hear from you ever again. Handshake, great. So it was just an interesting moment of, I don't own a car and I don't really understand how that transaction worked, but maybe I'll think about that later. I've never had to use it. I've never used it on anybody. No one's hit my car and I'm like, give me money. One of the other life lessons that I remember Pat telling me was that there was this rumor going around. So give you perspective again, the time frame is the late 80s. We're talking 1988. Who was big in the late 80s? New Kids on the Block. Whoa! Yeah, speaking of people he hated, Pat the Rocker Head, the teased out giant. I always say, the way I describe his hair, and for those who know this reference, bless you. For those who don't, look it up. You'll completely get the visual that I'm going to describe. If you look back at MTV in the late 80s on 1-800 or Dial MTV, the host of that MTV show, and he was a host for other things too. He was a regular VJ. Look up Adam Curry from that era because his hair pretty much mimicked what this guy Pat's hair looked like. And it was great. It was frosted tipped and everything. So this lesson that Pat taught me, which cracked me up, it cracks me up to this day because I've still heard it in other ways and other bands and other artists that become hot and become the thing. And the teen sensation is that jokey rumor about how somebody in the band or some artist got rushed to the hospital because they drank some level of I'll just say it politely, fluid that had to get pumped out of their stomach because they indulged so much of it that they had to get rushed to the ER and have their stomach pumped. And that rumor, because I heard it about somebody in the New Kids on the Block. Oh, did you hear so-and-so from New Kids on the Block? He got rushed to the hospital because they pumped his stomach filled with, use your imagination, you know what I'm talking about. And so when I brought that rumor up to him, he laughed so hard. I was like, what? He's like, that rumor's been going around forever with other artists. I go, what? He's like, Rod Stewart and Peter Frampton both had that same rumor told about them as well. And Rod Stewart was the most famous one. I remember the Rod Stewart one as well. Later on, I had heard about it. In fact, in Rod Stewart's autobiography, he talks about that rumor and laughs very hard about that situation. And it never happened, folks. I'm just, but the life lessons you get when you hear about things that you had no idea that were just fake. Before there was the internet, we had to just imagine that happened unless somebody shot it down and go, that didn't happen. That's how it worked. It's how it worked. I was very excited about working there too because I got to take home flats. Those were those album cover style flat cardboard things that you would put up on the walls and use to decorate your cool rock and roll record store windows with, or your display of like, hey, this new album's out by this band, so we're gonna put all these cool posters and flats and make this paper design to make it look very flashy. Got to take home a lot of cool poster art and stuff from the record store when it was done and over with. Oh, we're not pushing that album anymore. You can take home those Rat posters. Oh, cool. You know, that kind of thing. One of the other exciting moments of working there that I got such a thrill out of was changing out the Billboard chart sheet. So there was, the wall with the singles or the CD singles, and I mean, obviously in Radio Doctor's Land, there was the 45 one downtown, but this, we're in a compact store, so we only have like CD singles and singles. And, tiny small rack, more vertical. And I got the privilege every once in a while, and I call it a privilege because I got such a thrill out of it, to change out the new Billboard chart. So when the new Billboard magazine came in the mail, I got to tear out the chart and put it in a little plastic, frame thing that showed you what the charts were. I got such a thrill out of doing that because it was like, ooh, the fresh Billboard charts are in. I need to know who's number one with a bullet, baby. I mean, it was so DJ culture for me. I loved it. I also remember right around that time, I mean, this was, I remember it was like 88, 89, just seeing what was the next top 10 hits. It was so exciting to just put that thing up in 88 and just seeing who are the hit makers of the day every week. It was such an exciting time. I worked for the place for, I believe, somewhere around 4 to 5 months. It wasn't very long. Same with the dishwasher jobs, by the way, to give you perspective. I started it at 15. In the era of being 15 years old, I had 3 jobs in 1 year. And again, looking back, you think, oh, you only worked at the dishwasher job for like 5 months, maybe 6 months. And that doesn't seem like a long time. But as a 15-year-old yeah, it seemed like forever. I've been working at this place forever. 4 months? Now it's like, oh, that's only 16 weeks. And you're like, yeah, that's not really long. It's not. Time changes as you get older. Trust me. But back then, it seemed like I'd been working those places forever. Oh my God, 5 months. I've been at this place. Whew, I'm a career gal. That's. And of course, working at this record store, it wasn't very long at all either because I was going to eventually turn 16. Now, it doesn't mean I needed to I'm 16 now. Now I need to break free from these current job situations because I'm now legally able to find work somewhere. I was legally working. 16 was just like the next step, I guess. And what's funny is that I left the radio doctors. And what's, I guess, interesting about my 15 years of age is that I left and ended my radio doctor's job exactly before my 16th birthday because I embarked on a new job, of course. And you're thinking to yourself, why? Why would you leave radio doctors? Why would you ever leave that beautiful dream job that boy, if you listen to this podcast, I was beating my chest. Oh my God, the best job in the world. Oh, a 50-year-old working at a record store. How cool. But things had to change. A couple of reasons I left. One, I felt like I was getting the stink eye from the boss, not because I was doing anything wrong. I was showing up. But let's be honest, I just wasn't cool. I was cool because in my head I was cool. I was cool. I had CD players. In fact, I bought CDs from the store because I was so oh wow, I can get Queen's Greatest Hits, the EMI import. Wow, a CD costs $25. I guess it's worth it, and it was worth it. But that's when CDs were like $15 and imports were $25-$30, and they had all sorts of cool, original master sound CDs and all these things. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna buy some cool Queen stuff and cool, I was trying to be cool. And I had that job all the way up until February of 89, because that's when I turned 16. And that job was the best. The reason why they kind of soured on me, again, I wasn't that cool. I was kind of this schlubby fat kid that didn't realize retail had a level of presentability that I needed to because I didn't have a cool teenage wardrobe. But also, I was the only person that walked home from work. Everybody else drove. They got in a car and just drove off to wherever they lived. I don't even remember where everybody lived. I just knew I had to walk home. Well, weirdly enough, as I was working there and whatever, I would walk home and I'd start to notice broken CD or cassette, the security things, those long cassette security things that you'd have to snap the cassette out of to, and it had a electronic thing in it, Well, I was walking home up the hill towards my house on a random Thursday night, and I would walk and see, I'd collect 5 to 8 of those plastic security things for tapes, because obviously somebody walked home or got out of the store, walked up the hill and just tore that cassette they just stole from Radio Doctors out of that cassette security thing, and off we go. So I think I got a little side eye and a little bit of a, I don't know if this is a good place for you to work, but they didn't fire me. I found another job, but they definitely gave me some level of weird stink eye because I was coming into work the next time or the next shift, and I'd have like an armful of broken, stolen security things. So, imagine being an owner of a record store and you've hired this 15-year-old scrappy kid who wants the job and super hyper and excited about working here. And then every day he comes in and goes, yeah, I found all these stolen cassette things. Now, in earnest, I never stole a thing from that place the entire time I was there. Never stole, never thought about stealing. I valued my job too much. I didn't want to be a thief on the job. Sure, I guess there was temptation, but the only temptation came from myself. There was nobody like, you should totally steal some CDs. Like, I was too much of again, the Catholic guilt thing always clouded me in that way of like, don't ever do that bad thing. Don't do it. And I never did. But they definitely had a question mark above my head because, again, I was the only person. Now, they logically figured out that, of course, he is he's the only guy that walks home. So, of course, if there's theft, he's going to see it because he's walking up the hill and that's where people are doing. So soon enough, after I discovered, and I was I don't want to call myself a hero, but I definitely was the detective who broke the case about the theft. They put in security, things that beeped, and I remember having a couple shifts of putting security tags and all the things, and, I don't know why they didn't have it before, but again, it was such a small place. My brain was popping as to like, not enough people were in that store at one time for me to notice or pay attention to them stealing. And it wasn't a big enough store where I could not look weird standing in the aisle with the people shopping. You had to kind of be at the counter just kind of watching. There was no like traipsing through the aisles and just hanging out. It was a tiny store. So my brain was popping as well. Like, well, how are people stealing? I don't know. Maybe just my 15-year-old eyes were not like laser focused and watching people. They were just better thieves than I was a retail clerk. So perhaps it was my fault. I could never tell you. I didn't catch anybody. I never caught anybody and say, hey, that guy's stealing. It's just a thing that happened. But alas, my time at Radio Doctors, my magical dream job at the ripe age of 15 years old, was soon to come to an end because, as I said, I was turning 16 soon and I had new horizons in front of me. What are those new horizons, you may ask? Well, that is going to be a spicy next episode because there are so many layers to this 16-year-old job that I had for almost 2 years that changed everything for me as far as a perspective of where to work and who I worked with and all sorts of new examples and lessons and things that I did working my next job taught me. Thank you for joining me once again for my job adventures here on New Job Who Dis. Radio Doctors, rest in peace. I miss you. But thank you again for watching. Thank you again for listening. Please tune in again this coming Monday for another episode of New Job Who Dis. Where do I go from here? You're going to find out. Please subscribe. Please share. Please like. Please comment. Please say anything. Go to Apple Podcasts. Please leave a 5-star review because you know you love this. Please go to YouTube. Share your thoughts. Share your feelings. Just share this with people because the layers are still coming. We're not even, remember, we said 30 plus jobs. We're on job number 4. We haven't even hit anything major yet. But again, these are foundation jobs that led to pathways that I never dreamed possible as a youth growing up in Milwaukee. So again, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Please tune in. New Job Who Dis on the Podbean Network. You can catch it on Spotify. I almost said Shopify. Spotify. Apple Podcasts has it now. You can, of course, tune in and subscribe here at the YouTube channel of me, Halston Body. Thank you for listening. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you Monday. This has been New Job Who Dis?